On the agenda tonight, we're going back to the late 90s. We're going to be taking a look at Junior Brown, and he's going to be performing Freeborn Man. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So let's get Junior and the band up on screen and see how they get on.
I was born in the Southland. Some odd years ago. I left home for the very first time. When I was 4 years old, I'm a freeborn man. My home was on my back. Got no range of highway. Every foot of back road, every mile of railroad track. Well, I got an old guitar. Sack. Well, I hopped it about 200 times, but I always get it back. I'm a freeborn man. My home was on my another inch of highway. Every foot of back road, every mile of railroad track.
I'm just going to jump in here. There is so much technique on show, it is difficult to jump into because there's so much playing going on and so many notes going on. If you do want to watch this the whole way through without me interrupting it, there's going to be a link in the description below, as always, so you guys can click on that link. But just when we get into the alternate picking section, there's so much alternate picking here. There's hybrid picking as well. And when we're looking at Junior Brown's technique, he's all over the fretboard, but he's so good at implementing so many different techniques that blink and you'll miss it. It's all in that right hand, the way that he navigates through his hybrid picking. By the way, you'll be able to see on his right hand that he has got a finger pick on, so that will be on his second finger. We will get the guitar out in a second, but this is one of those performances that you could probably teach a course or just on this performance for about 3 years, going through all of the techniques and all of the subtleties in the techniques. So just getting into the guitar from a rhythm perspective to begin with, it is full steam ahead for this whole performance. If you look into the background, you'll be able to see Tanya Ray Brown, which is Junior's wife, playing the rhythm guitar. And you can see the way that with her right hand, that wrist is so loose, the technique, in order to get that, the speed of that rhythm. And you can see the way that she's actually kind of moving up and down with that rhythm hand as well. We don't get a clear indication of that rhythm in the mix. It's quite low down, but you can certainly see the amount of work that she's going through, never letting up. And just so you know, we've got our G. I'm playing a G7 here into our C7th, back into our G7th, into the D7th, C7th, and back to the G7th. So those are going to be our underlying chords. And the way that Junior's playing through this, he does go to the... all of that blues, minor pentatonic shape, but he's throwing so much technique in there to the point where, being in G, we can get to this open G, and he's got this... these 16th notes going on the whole time. So we've got this 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And when he's going into those 16th notes with that open G, we've got this... that kind of thing, working his way up. And it doesn't really matter, those aren't the notes that Junior's playing. It doesn't really matter what you're doing when you're ascending. You want to keep it relatively strict, but what's happening is you're getting up to the destination, and that's where you're going to resolve whatever you're doing. So in this case, we're just going to an octave above our G. So it means that we'll be up here. So if you're going here, and then you're back down to where you started. And like I said, it doesn't really matter the notes that you're picking out there, as long as you're just keeping it in G and moving all the way down, it's going to be fine. And even with the semitones that I did when I ascended, it doesn't really matter if you're throwing in that. You can throw in the blues if you want to go like that. Just throwing in that blues note there. But then he also goes to that alternate picking on the high E string, for example, going into... and now he's picking out single notes and alternate picking, so that there is a hell of a lot of technique here, especially when you start breaking it down into that kind of thing, picking out individual notes with alternate picking and just having a little run that you're throwing together. He also repeats that an octave higher, so again you want to move up to here. That kind of thing. So when we start blending together the technique of the right hand and the left hand, the synchronization here from Junior Brown is just spot on, and it is so difficult to get it to that stage. It takes a hell of a lot of practice, and when we're talking about lines like that, going... that kind of thing, when we're going... getting all of those notes just to pop out and to be nice and clean, like I said, is really difficult. But Junior Brown just has this technique down on the right hand with the alternate picking. There is another line that he plays where he palm mutes, and this is another major part of the sound. You can see the way that at the beginning of the song, when he starts getting into the harmonics, and I've started talking about one point, but then you just think about another technique that comes in, like the harmonics, and the way that he opens up his volume in order to get the harmonics to ring out a little bit more cleanly and loudly, and we've got this sound, but also when we have this, he just applies pressure on the strings, and this is just the other side of the nut here. He's just pushing down in order to increase the tension on that B string and the G. And it just gives such a cool sound. You might not be able to spot it, and you might think that he's doing something fancy, but it's just that. And when you look at him hold the top of the guitar, he might actually be pulling on the headstock of the guitar towards him to increase the tension even more, to make that slightly easier. It will take a lot of effort to push the strings down to get it to the tone higher that you want, but it is such a unique sound, and the way that he just throws it in there, again, just another technique. So the thing that I was going to mention before I got sidetracked with harmonics is the way that Junior Brown uses palm muting in order to get a really distinct sound to his lead, to clean it up as well. Gives you such a great appreciation of his hybrid picking, but just alternate picking ability. And to give an example of that, when I'm playing through a line, for example, going, and it's a little bit messy and doesn't have that palm mute on there, whereas as soon as I start to add this, now it's got a totally different sound because of the change in dynamics that I'm applying with the right hand by leaning on the string just above the bridge here. You don't want to go too far, because then you lose all the notes, and you'll just hear an occasional note, and mostly just clanging of the string. But if you come down here and keep moving down until you can start to hear those notes just cut through a little bit more. But this is what Junior Brown's just throwing in there. So he's got all of this technique of the, and that kind of thing. It's subtle, but when I went down to the D string and the A string, those are palm muted, so it's not all ringing out and sounding messy. There is a line in the intro, and also something that Junior goes back to throughout the performance, and it's this technique of, again, palm muting on the strings, so you get a very dead sound, but you can still hear the notes that are going on. And the way that Junior does it, it looks like he's using his pick, but also that finger pick on his second finger, because he's going to be with his third finger, and I believe he uses his first finger to jump from this, like that. My hands don't really want to do it with the first finger. My second finger wants to get involved, so that. And you can start to hear the palm mute on the right hand of that, kind of keeping it quiet. So when you do that pull off, it starts to get a really distinct sound because of the way that the palm muting is allowing the notes to just stop and not ring out and blend over or roll over and bleed into the next note. So this is it. When you apply that palm mute, it means that every note is now ringing out for a very short time. So when Junior's throwing together those kind of passages, you get to hear all of the notes really cleanly without them ringing out too far or for too long. It's one of those lines that you can keep on practicing and repeating, gradually increase the speed until you get to your desired speed. Junior's got this up to a very impressive speed, but he's really efficient with that right hand. He's got a pick on his second finger, which he's using on the high E string as the upstroke, where you would normally do an upstroke, which I was just demonstrating there. And he's also got his pick playing the B string, and the pick is just dealing with one string, and his second finger is dealing with the other string. So it means that he can be really efficient. He doesn't have to move around a lot with that right hand in order to get these notes to follow along from each other really quickly. But let's get Junior back on screen and we'll watch it until the end.
son. Well, I love girl next door, but any place is home. I'm a freeborn man. My home's on my Ranger Highway. Every foot of back road, every mile of railroad track. Well, you may not like my appearance. You like the way I'm gone, I'm a freeborn man. My home is on my back. I know every inch of highway. Every foot of back road, every mile of railroad track. I'm a freeborn man. My home is on my back. I know every inch of highway. Back road or a mile of railroad track.
And there we have it. There is so much in there. And the harmonics, hopefully you could listen out for that, the way that we didn't actually get to see him do it, but you can definitely hear where he is pressing down on that G and the B, and having all of that lead together, the way that he gets up into the minor pentatonic shape 1 at the top of the guitar. So it means that we are right up here on our guitars, and he just makes his way here. So he's got this. And what I like about it is the fact that he does go to that classic blues of having the, with little bends in there as well, like that, with vibrato at the top of the bend. So he's got total control of that technique, getting the guitar to sing. So throughout this whole performance, we've pretty much got 16th notes just firing off the whole time from Junior Brown, and you need top technique in order to pull that kind of thing off live. And just to give you a demonstration of those 16th notes, it means that we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the 16th notes were the picks that I was just doing there. So it means that once you've got that as a guide, trying to fit your notes, you've got to try and get all of them to sound at exactly the right time, synchronize your left hand and your right hand in order to get the notes that you want. Another thing that Junior does is bend on this second fret. It's something that it doesn't look like he's bending, but he is bending in order to get this sound of, and get that first finger to bend up the tone in order to match the top end of your G chord. And the thing about that, it takes a lot of effort in order to get that bend there. You might need some really light strings in order to achieve that, and don't hurt yourself trying to do this bend. You might be able to get it a little bit to there, but then the tension really does ramp up. So in order to go and push it up there, yeah, you need to maybe train your fingers for a little while, but it's, again, another little piece of technique that will fly under the radar, but is so impressive when you watch what he's doing there. Another thing that I've just remembered is the way that Junior goes to a G 9th chord, and I think he slides into it, either ascending or descending, I can't remember, but the technique that he uses is to get his hand underneath the bridge of the guitar, and if you've got a whammy bar, you can just push down on that towards your guitar and you'll get that sound. Whereas if you don't have that, this is what Junior's doing, is just simulating that effect on the bridge. So you you can hear how just lifting it up gives you that same effect, because it's going to decrease the tension on the strings and therefore make the pitch decrease, and then once you let go of it, it comes back up again. But just one of those little technique details that when you're watching this video, just a new one pops up pretty much every second. Just looking at the work that Junior Brown gets through in this video is seriously impressive stuff. But thank you guys for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!